Hello and welcome to a Driven Catalyst live stream. I'm Riley, and today is Riley Day, New Music Fridays. So today I'm going to do a quick recap of the albums I've listened to throughout the week. I'm going to give my immediate saves and faves, and then we are going to dive into Send a Prayer My Way from Julien Baker and Torres, which is the new release of the day, and I am a longtime Julien Baker fan, and so we're going to dive in. It is actually so serious, too, that I went and got wired headphones on my lunch break so that I could wear my cowboy hat for the live stream today. So first, let's get into the albums of the week that I listened to. Shout out to one of my close friends for this first one. He messaged me and recommended I listen to OK Cowgirl's new album. I don't know that it's new, actually. Just it's new to me. OK Cowgirl's album Couldn't Save Us From My Gut. Actually cannot recommend the whole album enough. His initial recommendation to me was the song Forever. But after listening, my immediate saves were Mars Cheese Castle, Swirling, and Nighttime Thinking, I think really got to me. Fantastic album. August 16th, 2024 is the release date. And that was one of my faves this week. I also did my homework. So I listened to George Strait's Greatest Hits. I watched a TikTok, someone covering You Look So Good in Love on TikTok, and I said, hey, wait a minute, that was so good. I'm going to listen to the rest of the album / just learn more about George Strait, because I have known and have been awaiting all week this new Julien Baker Torres country album. So I said, let's get back to the basics. Let's listen to some George Strait, and I loved it. Pretty much saved the whole album, but my favorites are If You're Thinking You Want a Stranger, There's One Coming Home, Full Hearted Memory, of course, Amarillo by Morning is like, if you're a Texan, you know Amarillo by Morning. But I love A Fire I Can't Put Out and You Look So Good in Love also. So I listened to that all the way through. I've had it on shuffle throughout the week. Chance Pena, Ever Shifting, Continual Blossoming. I listened to that album all the way through. Loved it. Came across Chance Pena because I was out at a restaurant and they had the Chance Pena Pandora radio on shuffle. Very, very urgently. Had to jot down the lyrics to Google to figure out what song I was hearing for Good Love Die. And then had to do my homework, listen to Chance Pena's discography better. And so immediate saves from Ever Shifting, Continual Blossoming were It Is What It Is, Nobody Likes Change, and Montana. Then Chance Pena actually has a new song out today, song from yesterday it's called, and I wrote down that it's very similar to me sonically to Broad Ripple Is Burning from Margot and the Nuclear So-and-Sos, which is one of my favorite songs. Just in general, it comes on shuffle in my liked songs often, and so I made a note of that. That is, in my mind, an apt comparison and also like a flattering comparison. Hats in general are kind of hard with bangs, but we have to be on theme today. Okay, now let's dive in. Wait, hold on. I forgot boom. These are the albums I just talked about that I listened to throughout the week. I think I'm going to off-road with the mic right now. Hold on. Let me turn down while I get this. Alrighty. Okay, also another note. I listened to, oh my gosh, I didn't mention. I listened to the Flip Turn album, Burnout Days, too. Because I kept getting ads for the vinyl pressing. I love Flip Turn. I do like Flip Turn. But I kept getting ads for their vinyl for Burnout Days, and the pressing was so pretty that I just had to listen to the album. So I enjoyed that. I don't have my immediate saves written down for that one, but rest assured there were some. All right, now without further ado, let's get into Julien Baker and Torres. So first and foremost, I am like a fan of Julien Baker's for like 10 years now. I don't know how this happened, but I listened to her, found her in high school, and just immediately fell in love. And so we are now like going strong for 10 years, and I couldn't be more excited to be getting a country album from her. So if a lot of this live stream feels like a love letter to Julien Baker, it's because it a little bit is. Yeah, like at 15, I couldn't have wrapped my head around what an important role her and her work would play in my life. But I just do think so highly of everything that she creates and puts out. So yeah. Hi, Julien. I love you. Okay, let's dive in. First and foremost, I feel like I would be remiss to not talk about the fact that, like, I think in general, there are a lot of artists putting out country albums that aren't generally country artists. There's a lot of cultural blending going on right now. And it's very important to me as someone who grew up in Texas. I think that these albums are valiant and at sometimes defiant reminders of the people and communities that are in the South. And I think that these albums are very important. So I would say that Send a Prayer My Way, without a doubt, exists in that subgenre of blending country with, I would say in this case, it's alternative indie. What is indie? That's a whole other conversation. But the blending of these sounds and finding a world where they like coexist. All right, so let's dive in. Sorry, I'm like consulting notes. Yeah, I like knew ahead of time I wouldn't be able to say as much as I would like to about that. But yeah, I just like have a note that this blending of genres is very heartfelt to me. And this album definitely is a standout. And my discussion of the album today will very much be in that vein, talking about how almost a central theme of the album is, I think, that blending of worlds and reimagining country music in a lot of ways. And the singles, I can't pretend that I know much, if anything, about how the putting out of singles and an album release works on the business end. And I think it has probably shifted a lot too, as the landscape for marketing and business have shifted with, frankly, like the digital media revolution, and also the rise of indie and the accessibility of creativity now. How I don't know, how creation has in some ways become democratized. In other ways, obviously, there's still like a lot of obstacles to being able to be a creative and make it your job. But I would assume, so with that, this album is let me get you the stats. This is a 12-song, 39-minute, 42-second album. And of those 12 songs, they put out 5 initial release singles, right? So when you hear and think single, or at least when I do, I think of those are the songs that get radio play and award consideration. They are the more, I don't know, socially poppy considered songs. And I don't necessarily... While I do think that, like, without a doubt, there's so many songs on this album that could be considered for radio play. Like, I think we've moved on from a world where that's, like, the ultimate thing. And so when I listen to albums and I consider what songs were put out as the initial release singles, I do look for, like, what world are we building a little bit. And I pay attention to why those choices were made. And there were choices that I initially didn't understand that now that I've listened to the album as a whole, which isn't to say that there were songs I didn't like, but I didn't understand their, like, choosing them as a single. And now after listening to the album as a whole and appreciating it as a work, it totally makes sense to me. And so I'll mention that as we get to that song. I'm going to work my way all the way through the album, and we will discuss it. First and foremost, too, though, because I've talked so much about like this new genre fusion that's going on, or this reimagining of a genre, or the assertion that there are artists that can exist and be high up on the charts in a genre, that there's no one way for a country artist to look or be, reminds me a lot of I don't know. So I went to film school, and one of the most important papers that have stayed with me was a chapter that we did on genre theory. And genre theory, as someone who also minored in philosophy and got into linguistics and sign and signifiers and all of those things, understanding that like in the same way that we use language, we create language. And genres are so similar to that. In the same way that we use these designators to classify things, the classified thing itself helps inform how we are classifying. Does that make sense? So in the same way that, and that's what's so cool and important to me about these fusion albums, is that in the same way that we think George Strait when we say country, we are expanding what we think of country when we say country by putting out these fusion albums, and reimagining and reasserting the dominance of creatives and themes explored in country, I guess. So I won't dive in too much, but I imagine I've made my point, that you get what I'm saying. So I did a little behind the scenes background research, because I knew if I was going to prattle on about all of this, I wanted to get some key bullet points almost about like what is country music, right? So I Googled it, of course. Classic country music is characterized by simple harmonies, often featuring 3-chord progressions, straightforward lyrics that tell stories about love, heartbreak, and rural life, and a distinct sound featuring instruments like guitars, acoustic, electric, and steel, banjos, fiddles, and harmonicas. The genre often incorporates elements of folk, blues, and jazz, contributing to its unique sound, right? So on paper, that's what country music is. And as we go through the songs track for track, I have a lot of notes on how I think that these songs lean into the themes and what we expect from country, and then expand what we are receiving from country and how we will think about country moving forward. So that is, first and foremost, I think one of the key things that I noticed as the singles were coming out about this album. The lyrical structure is definitely rooted in country. The sound of things is definitely rooted in country. And the way things sound and are produced have their feet, I think, in both country and sort of alternative. Like, this is y'alternative, you know? But idiomatically, I feel like there's a lot of storytelling-based lyrics and a lot of uses of idioms in ways that feel both like they have the grunge quality to them. Like, I feel like super emo, grunge, heartfelt lyricism is poetic in a way that also lends itself to the idiomatic, simple lyricism in country music. So it's a blend that I think is very thoughtfully explored and works so well in this context. And then sonically, I just, in my own personal classification sense, wrote that there's dive bar country and there's pickup truck country. And I haven't gone so far as to track by track classify which song is which, but I think if you listen to the album, you will very easily be able to tell which songs are the dive bar country tracks and which ones are the pickup truck country tracks. Now, what I mean by that is dive bar has that big band sound, That's when we get more of like the pedal steel guitar sound. And then with the pedal steel is kind of in both, but more the percussive elements of the big band, like that's the dive bar country. And then pickup truck country is, I'm thinking Cowboy Take Me Away, I'm thinking The Chicks, I'm thinking that kind of sound where it's like it's sunset, your head's out the window, you're driving through Texas Hill Country. It's a clear, bright guitar sound that's different from some of the grunge dive bar country. And because I think a lot of the indie singer-songwriter sound leans towards that clean, bright guitar, a lot of times with the pickup truck country, and then a lot of the indie grunge, like pedal steel guitar, diffusive audio choices lean towards dive bar country. It works. Like America First rap country song. Like I'm looking at you, Phoebe Bridgers. She knew what we were talking about. So yes. Okay, we're gonna move through it track for track, and I am embarrassed to say that I don't have any. Hey, I lied. We're not ready to move on to track for track. So put a pin in everything I just said. But yeah, so we got clean canyony strings versus versus dirty big band fiddle are the notes that I made that help delineate dive bar country and pickup truck country. Something of note too is basically on every track period were produced by Julien Baker, Phoebe Bridgers, and then Illuminati Hotties producer credit. Hello, which I had no clue. Illuminati Hotties have producer credits on True Blue, $20, and Emily, I'm Sorry from Boy Genius, the album. If you don't know, now you know. Boy Genius is the supergroup comprised of Julien Baker, Phoebe Bridgers, and Lucy Dacus. I'm sure if you are tuning into this live, hopefully, you know them. You know them, you love them. That's all I'll say. I had no clue, though, Illuminati Hotties had a production credit on Boy Genius, the album, though. I did have the unique privilege of seeing the Illuminati Hotties live. They were opening support on, golly, it must have been the Historian Tour when I first saw Lucy Dacus live. Absolutely phenomenal. And I got to see the Illuminati Hotties, so that's so cool. I had no clue that they have quite the discography of producer credits. So super cool. They did a phenomenal job with this album. I can't get enough of this album. I really loved it. Now we are going to move track for track. So album opens with Dirt. This was the 4th single released of the 5 that they initially put out. I don't have any major notes other than great song. There's not a single song on the album that didn't work for me, that I didn't love. So yeah, really the main note I have is Dirt was an initial release single. Okay, now we move into The Only Marble I've Got Left. This is bold, italicized, starred in my list because this was one of my immediate saves. This is also the first that I just went straight to Genius Lyrics, copied, pasted into my notes. The lyrics. So the lyrics I copied and pasted are, I'll keep your vase full of fresh flowers and I'll look you in the eye. I'll love on your parents, won't be of boredom that you'll die. Because I'll keep the tables turning and I'll always do my best to keep you charmed with the only marble I've got left. So again, I feel like this is the lyrical country wit that we would expect from the genre. And still it has this like, I'll keep your vase full of fresh flowers and I'll look you in the eye. It has that poetic, it's the indie singer-songwriter poeticism, and it's blending beautifully. I don't have many notes about that track sonically, but I just immediately fell in love with it. That's got to be one of my favorites from the album. Sugar in the Tank was the first single that came out. That's the next song on the album, track 3. Phenomenal, immediate bop. I have no notes for that one. I've been listening to it for a while at this point, and so I couldn't come up with any new thoughts. But yeah, Sugar in the Tank. To know it is to love it. Moving on to track 4, that is Bottom of a Bottle. This was the 5th single released, so I think it came out this week, right? And this song contains the titular line, "If you hear this song someday, please send a prayer my way." So I always make a note of whatever track it is that the title for the album actually appears in, because usually I try to parse this song for maybe the thesis statement for the album. I think generally the thesis statement in my mind for this album is this reimagining of country through an alternative lens. Absolutely, there are like more themes and there is a story to the album, but I'm not really going to discuss it here today in this context. But it's a work of art. Okay, so Bottom of a Bottle, I have noted that sonically, like, the strings just remind me so much of Cowboy Take Me Away strings. It's that big, beautiful orchestral sound in country. This is absolutely a pickup truck country song. And I would say this too is probably one of my favorite tracks from the album. Okay, now we move into Downhill Both Ways. This, I have a note, production-wise, it just reminded me so much of Julien Baker's Turn Out the Lights, or Sprained Ankle with Twang. Hey, which is it? I wasn't too clear in my notes, but it just, like, it. I think really what I mean by that is that it's just so Julien Baker to me. As a lover of Julien, and I don't want to talk too much about Julien Baker because this is Torres' album too, and it's a phenomenal album, and love you, Torres. But there's just so many moments where I, as someone who's more familiar with Julien Baker's work, I like hear the influence. I can chart like on a map all the different songs and isms that I recognize. So, and then of course, as a big Boy Genius fan, I have noted 250 is the timestamp, and it's got the banjo picking. I said banjo picking, phenomenal. I, for a period of time, did own a banjo and was trying my hardest to learn how. And the closest I got ever was just to play the down, 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 in Me and My Dog. I know I just sounded just like it. You're probably blown away, want to know why I got rid of my banjo. But yeah, so of course, that was like also my reminder to myself that, like, of course we consider the Boy Genius EP an indie alternative album or EP. But right there, we're using the same sort of instrumental set as are listed in our country album genre bullet points. Okay, moving forward, we have No Desert Flower, and I marked this, but I can't remember why. Okay, yes, okay. I have this marked with like a plus sign instead of an asterisk. And so that's me trying to use my own little symbol language to make a note of something to myself. But at this point, I can't fully remember, except I do think that what I meant by that is this to me is the standout track in how it blends alternative and country. This is the alternative track of the album in my mind. So I have timestamp 0.37 or 037. Sonic transition, hell yeah. Like sonically, I think if I remember correctly, the song just sounds so big in that moment, if that makes sense. And I have written, this is a great country album with its feet planted firmly in alternative production elements. Yeah. And then this was really when I started to think more intently and making notes to myself that I wanted to look up some of the band components of country albums and then think more about how, like, it's so common for these alternative rock, alternative or indie singer-songwriter artists to use the loop pedals, and we have expectations for what a band looks and sounds like in that context. And they're not very unlike what you would expect from like a great country album either. And so seeing the blending of the two worlds, I feel like you really see it in a big picture sense with No Desert Flower. So then I have extra notes. This is when I started doing my behind the scenes digging, looking into kind of the band components. I have copied and pasted the wailing sound in country music often refers to the use of twang, a distinctive vocal and instrumental characteristic that's been associated with the genre since its early days. It can also refer to the wailing. The wailing is the key word that I was like looking up. Like, what is the country wailing, right? The wailing keening sound produced by the pedal steel guitar. So then I started looking up the difference between the slide guitar and the pedal steel guitar and learning about how those work and what that looks like when it comes to putting together a song. I don't know. I'm not a music student. I am just a lover of it. So I try to use language as effectively as I can to try and describe what I'm hearing and what I'm liking, but it's all very novice. Moving forward, tape runs out, track 7. I wrote grunge guitar sound with the twang wails. And then I have timestamped 1:30 build peak. So it's like, to me, was at its, I just made note of, I really liked the build. That is when it sounded its biggest. Yeah, has the big feel of a big band country. I have Love Me Some Fiddle. And then blend in some percussive elements that feel central to Julian Baker's hard line. Ending screamy burn, slide guitar, ? On tape runs out. Feels like an element that marries these two worlds again. 3:18. Oh, okay, yes. So this is a part of the song that I kept listening over and over and over again. It's like the last 3 seconds of the song, but there's like a light guitar plink sound, or it's like the final reverb of the note. And I just like live for moments like this in music. They're super common, or they're way more common on live session tapings. So if you listen to the Spotify live session of, golly, I think it's Strange Torpedo maybe from Lucy Dacus, there's like a little plink in the beginning, and I don't think it's technically supposed to be there, but it makes the music feel so lived in a way that to me makes it all warmer, better, more heartfelt. Like, I just enjoy tapings like that way more. And so the choice to have a studio album that still has these little character sounds in it, to me, it makes it all the more enjoyable to me. It's something I've noticed too that is becoming more and more common. I want to say that when I first noticed it, when when Phoebe Bridgers' Punisher came out, I think there were behind the scenes of like everyone. She has like, and I know the end, it's like the collaboration to end all collaborations in terms of the artists that she has behind the scenes screaming. And I don't know, there's just the same elemental quality where there's like these little sounds that make everything feel like you're there more, I guess is a better way to say it. So moving forward, we are on to track 8, Off the Wagon. I have a note of the violin at 46 seconds. If I do remember correctly, I think this was, in my mind, big orchestral violin. So I have violin, amazing, because I would have said fiddle. If it was Dirty Drive Bar fiddle, I would have written that. But it's 46 seconds, violin, amazing. But so then in contrast, I made a note of, okay, I remember the song now. Backdrop of scaling bass, grunge alt foundation. So then we're getting more into this like grunge alternative music with the bass that's running the scale in the background. Like almost the music bed for the rest of the music, the way it all layers. Then I have noted 152, rhythm punctuates this song. And then I made a note to myself, find the Boy Genius or Julien song that this reminds me of. I have like the craziest up caret and then down V, trying to denote the like Okay. Yeah. I was going to initially try and like verbalize the rhythm so you knew what I was talking about, but I was able to detect, I think it's Favor, Julien Baker's Favor from Hardline. The timestamp is 3:40 for Favor. And it reminds me of 152 of Off the Wagon. And I have it noted. Yeah, sometimes I write things down and I'm like, girl, I know what you mean, or I did at one point, but you've lost me. So I've written, I like how big and small this song sounds. And I think if I remember, what I think I meant by this at the time was that it sort of pulses, like in the way that I said that there's this contrast between this like big orchestral violin and then the backdrop of the scaling bass that's grunge. There's sometimes where everything drops out and there's less of a backdrop, and you just are in the small moment and you hear one individual sound of an instrument. But then there are other times that it builds and the rhythm is punctuating it, and it's got the big band dive bar feel. I think that's what I mean. Okay, moving forward, Tuesday. Tuesday was the third single, and this is the track that I didn't understand why it was a single at first. I take back that stance that I maybe would have held at one point where I was like, I don't really know why this was a single, because when we get back into like the genre theory of everything and we talk about what is country, what are the stories explored in country, this is such an important track. It's such an important single. So like, let's dive in. I wrote down storytelling. This is like the world building country cautionary tale, kind of. I hate using language like cautionary tale, but my go-to karaoke song is Suds in the Bucket by Sarah Evans. And this idea, we're exploring this story of like little ponytail girl grew up to be a woman and she's gone in the blink of an eye. She left the suds in the bucket and the clothes hanging out on the line. The idea that like, don't you wonder what the preacher's going to preach about Sunday morning? Nothing quite like this has happened here before. This exploring this like story, this relatable story, and asserting that there is a different kind of relatable story that fits into this country niche and telling you exactly what it looks like, how it sounds. That is the beauty of Tuesday to me. Blending worlds and storytelling. I like this song so much as a part of the world of the album. Yeah. Okay. A lot of, I made a note too that like my eyes started stinging at this song. So I had this whole transitional moment where I went from feeling like Tuesday was probably my least favorite track on the album initially to being so in the world and understanding the importance that it plays on the album and on the just in everything that this album is doing as a whole. Like realizing that it really is an important track, and it moved me to like tear up. So in a lot of ways, that is what Tuesday is to this album, Julien Baker has been to my life. Like her work has played such a resoundingly important role in my life, and everything that she as an artist stands for and what she has like talked about. There's it's like a 2-hour video of her painting and talking about her like philosophies of life, talking about like different stories throughout her life, and things she's learned along the way. And that video is just so phenomenal. And that, I don't know, I guess that has just really shaped the image I have in my head of Julien Baker. And so when I'm talking about Tuesday being Tuesday being to the album what Julien Baker has been to my life, that's kind of me granting context to, like, parasocially speaking, I guess, the Julien Baker I know and love, and why I feel like this kinship with her and love for her. So, moving on, we are going to track 10, Showdown. And I just have like a little tearful colon, comma, smiley face, parentheses, smiley face, like a little tearful smiley face. And the note, that's my Julian Baker. Showdown, I think, just production wise sounds like a Julian Baker song, and then it blends into this beautiful, beautiful country track. I have 208 timestamped. Electric guitar scale riff is really pretty. Then once again, I have bum 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 scale written down, which is just so funny that I think it in my head and I write it down and I think I'm gonna know what I mean later, and I kind of do but don't quite. No way I'll be able to impart it to anyone online, but I have a note of that. Yeah, I wrote down Sprained Ankle, the song Something from Sprained Ankle. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, so the scale, I think I mean the scaling bass in this. That's the bed of it. I think either that or it's the electric. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's the electric guitar scale riff. And it reminded me a little bit of some of the electric guitar picking that we get in Sprained Ankle or in Something from Sprained Ankle, which was the first ever Julian Baker song I knew. And comparing like putting Showdown and Something in the same world together in an intertextual sense. Like if you want to sit down with the lyrics of both and like consume them as a pair, like if I think too much about it, I'm going to be sick. Like it's just beautiful. And as once again, like a fan of Julian Baker's work for 10 years, like I'm 25, but I go back and I'm like, it's like I'm 15 again, you know? Okay, moving forward, Sylvia. That was the second single we've got. And this again is like such a country song thematically. I've written down it's the My Woman country song, but it is actually, I think, about one of the artist's dogs, which I think is so sweet. And we've got, again, like the use of this idiomatic language and using cliches, which is something Taylor Swift does a lot. And I think that's like a huge part of, too, why she first started in country and then has become this ever-present prolific artist, because it's like this simple language that can be used to say so much. There's a lyric from Gracie Abrams' new song Death Wish that your words to kill are evergreen, so you must not feel anything at all. But the idea that your words to kill are evergreen, the idea that words could be evergreen, and that almost like cliches this is going to be a pretty lengthy sidebar. I'm sorry. But what that lyric to me in Gracie Abrams says is, your words to kill are evergreen, so you must not feel anything at all. Meaning like you're speaking in cliches. Everyone can understand what you mean. So you just like, it's almost like you're being lauded as being this everyman and knowing, like everyone can connect with you. And I used to think that must mean you were this like emotionally intelligent person with all this relatability. But actually now I think like it just means you're saying what I want to hear that everyone can understand in some regard. And I think that just harkens back to the power of these lyrics that have their footing in common language and idioms and turns of phrases that are cliches, and then reimagining them and broadening what they mean. And so then that, of course, on an album that fuses two genres together and explores what creatives can be in these genre spaces, and like it all just fits together really smartly, I think. Sorry, I just said a lot about that. That was quite the tangent. But yeah, that to me is like, Sylvia has a lot of phrasing like that. A day for me is a week for you, where it's like, in a literal sense, this is a song about a dog. And so that's like true and sweet, and talking about like this, a creature's sense of time. But it works so well also in like a poetic, prosaic context. Then yeah, the use of a refrain, Sylvia, don't forget me, just absolutely feels sort of like this like love song refrain that you would commonly see in a country song, and making it this like love song for a dog is special. And then our closing track, track 12, Goodbye Baby. We've got Talking at the beginning, which is like, they have this silly, what's the difference between jelly and jam? I have written down, just as a longtime Boy Genius fan, this reminded me of where does Napoleon keep his armies in his sleeveys? Or is that the joke? Or is it, there's something about a muffin too, I think, in the Boy Genius Tiny Desk. They're like in between sets. Phoebe has to vamp and tells a joke, yeah, and then I think Lucy has a joke in there too. But like that, just talking at the beginning of the album, I think that is another like trope of country music. I feel like the talking at the beginning of the track, it's also becoming way more common, I think, with Midwest emo. But that again is something I noted as just another thing that felt like it fit into the genre, and then it felt like, I don't know, it reminded me of that Boy Genius Tiny Desk, so I just had to make a note of it. I have written down Hootenanny, big band drum, and then jaunty bright guitar. So this to me was the blending of the dive bar and the pickup truck. And then it ends with the door shop bell, which also just feels like it fits into this like scenic country world that we've built. And that was my final note on Julien Baker and Torres's Send a Prayer My Way. I have been waiting for this album since it was announced. I could not be more excited about it, and I absolutely enjoyed it. Really loved existing in that world for the 39 minutes and 42 seconds. And you at this point have spent 42 minutes with me talking about it. So if you haven't already, go listen to it. I think you will love it. Once again, the albums I mentioned at the top of the live stream were Couldn't Save Us From My Gut from OK Cowgirl, George Strait's Greatest Hits, Flip Turn, Burnout Days, and Chance Peña's Ever Shifting Continual Blossoming. Those are the albums I've been listening to this week, in addition to Julien Baker and Torres's Send a Prayer My Way. And I hope you have a great rest of your Friday, great weekend. Goodbye.